Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Adam Hudson here. Uh, another solo episode of mine, Adam's Riffs. Today is February 3rd, 2026. It's Tuesday. Yeah, again, this is Real Sankara Hours, Pan African Socialist Political Podcast. Adam Hudson here, doing a solo episode for Real Sankara Hours. If you're listening to this on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and you can become a patron for $5 a month on our Patreon, patreon.com/realsuncarhours for $5 a month and get access to bonus episodes. Um, yeah, like I said, today's Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. I'm here in the Bay Area recording this morning. Um, it's like around 10:50 a.m. Foggy outside. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of shit that I want to talk about. What I plan on doing is actually, well, just a heads up, this is gonna be a long solo episode. So what I'm gonna do is record the whole thing, upload the whole thing, but also there's going to be a part one and a part two. So I'll upload the whole thing, but also split it up into part one and part two. So part one, I'm going to be talking about, well, I'll mention ICE, and then what I really wanted to talk about, what I've been meaning to talk about for quite some time, is basically the CIA-backed Afghan death squads and this the National Guard shooter, and then another incident where an Afghan migrant who probably served in special forces, he got in a shootout with police in Virginia. I wanted to talk about that, and then these articles about the Afghan death squads, and then also these articles on Trump's lethal strikes in the Caribbean against these boats that the Trump administration alleged were connected with drug cartels like Tren de Aragua, when they were that was complete bullshit. But then a bunch of other shit happened, especially with what's going on in Minnesota. ICE killing people. So I want to talk about that, and then also this interesting video. Well, this Instagram post by Jane Lee about the black roots of K-pop music. So there's a lot I want to talk about. So I'm gonna split it up. So the first part I'll talk about the the U.S. strikes in against boats in the Caribbean, and then the CIA-backed Afghan death squads, and I wanted to talk about like how there's continuity from the global war on terror, and particularly an article I wrote in 2014, 12 years ago, about big tech and the U.S. war machine, and I mentioned Palantir in it. So that'll be in the first part, and then the second part, because it's Black History Month, I want to focus on like Black culture, Black history, and talk about K-pop and even Black America's mood when it comes to ICE. So anyway, yeah, let's just get started with that. I've been paying attention to like what's going on in the House and the Senate with this appropriations bill, because on January 31st, on Saturday, the Senate passed a stopgap bill which would fund the Department of Homeland Security for 2 weeks to allow for negotiations on DHS and ICE funding, while continuing for the remaining fiscal year to fund other federal agencies like the Department of Defense slash Department of War, State Department, etc., etc. And as of now, seems like the House passed that bill because the Senate passed the bill on Saturday. Then, because it was they had kind of changed up that bill. Then, now the House approved it, and so it's gonna go back to the Senate. So, I actually want to double check. It'd be good to actually do that for part 2 because apparently the Senate's gonna vote on it this afternoon. Like I said, I'm recording in the morning, so I'll return for part 2 either later on today or maybe tomorrow to touch on that. And so it seems likely that the Senate will pass it, then it'll go on Trump's desk and he'll probably sign it. But the reason why, for this stopgap bill is because, people are pissed at ICE. Trump's approval rating is going down the shitter. His base that he had is starting to fall apart because on January 24th, about a week and a half ago, a 37-year-old man named Alex Preddy was killed by Border Patrol in Minnesota. He was an ICU nurse at a veterans hospital. White guy, similar to Renee Nicole Good, who's a white woman. And there are multiple videos of it. The guy was just like a group of just these Border Patrol like thugs were just fucking, ganging up on him, and then he had a legally concealed like handgun, and one of the agents pulled it out, and they shot him multiple times. And also, this is kind of a trip. So the names of the Border Patrol agents who killed Alex Preddy have been released. So the names, they are identified in ProPublica. This is where it came from. The original source is ProPublica. By the way, ProPublica is a very good publication. Keep in mind, like, in Minnesota, there's like a combination of ICE and Border Patrol agents who are doing this fucking anti-immigration crackdown, mass deportation shit. So, there's Border Patrol agent Jesus Ochoa and Customs and Border Protection Officer Raimundo Gutierrez. They were the officers who shot and killed Alex Preddy. Ochoa is 43, Gutierrez is 35. Seems like they've been in Border Patrol for quite some time. And I thought I'd mention this at the top. Like, people are kind of shocked that the guys who shot this white guy, Alex Preddy, were Latino. And like there are a lot of I'm just looking up, like, I think like somewhere, I'm just looking up, I did a quick Google search, I want to find more. But somewhere like half of US Border Patrol are Latino. Because I think like there's a lot of recruitment in border communities, like communities that are on the US Mexico border. There's also, I think, like kind of like, I think they prefer agents, or I think they like having agents who are also speak Spanish, because especially if they're on the U.S. Mexico border. So like there's an advantage if a Border Patrol agent also speaks Spanish in addition to English. And there's also like economic incentives. So like, so there's apparently, I wasn't surprised that the agents were Latino. A lot of people were, but I was like, from what even from what I know, like of certain law enforcement agencies, like they do recruit from communities of color. Yeah, there are also Black Americans in law enforcement agencies, but not as much in agencies like Border Patrol and ICE. And if you guys have seen some videos of like these ICE agents doing these this goon shit, a lot of people, like if you notice, like a lot of these guys, these agents have accents. They got Spanish last names. Um and yeah, like these agencies like Border Patrol and ICE, like they do recruit in Latino communities. And they do play on that kind of model minority, like, okay, we're the good immigrants, we're gonna go after the bad immigrants. There's that. And like I talked about numerous times on this podcast, like there's a history of colonization in Latin America that has a ripple effect today. And like, yeah, there is like a legacy of anti-blackness in Latin America, and that can shape, attitudes of some members of the Latino community. And even among Latinos, that's something I know that they deal with internally within their own community. And so I wanted to mention it because, like I said, a lot of people were surprised that the Border Patrol agents who shot Alex Preddy were Latino. But yeah, somewhere like 50% of Border Patrol agents are Latino, and part of it has to do with, like, I think it seems like they like having Border Patrol agents who also speak Spanish because, again, they're on the U.S. Mexico border. There's also, like, it's a kind of job economic incentive too. And yeah, there's recruitment in border communities. And so, yeah, you're going to have a significant number of Border Patrol agents who are also Latino. And yeah, it's a sad irony that, you know, these agencies recruit from non-white communities to do the dirty work of white supremacy. Um, and yeah, it is weird that, like, the these Border Patrol agents were Latino and they killed a white guy who was there protesting deportation. Yeah, a lot of people were pointing out the irony of that. And look, I mean, look, the power structure will get members of oppressed communities to do their dirty work. But this is, I think I need people to, like, have a more sophisticated analysis of oppression, because, like, it is true. Like, it is not uncommon for power structures to get members of oppressed communities to do the dirty work. And it's not just racial and ethnic communities. They'll get women, they'll get LGBTQ folks, they'll get black people, Latinos. Like, it is not uncommon for a power structure to get members of the oppressed community to do its dirty work. So if you understand that, then it's not surprising to see, Latino Border Patrol agents doing the dirty work of Trump's mass deportations. In the same way, like, yeah, there are black police officers who will kill unarmed black people. Like, that's happened too. So, yeah, I think it's important for people to have a more sophisticated analysis of this stuff, and to, yeah, speak out against it. But it's like, if you understand, like, yeah, how much, like, Border Patrol and, like, these agencies do recruit in certain communities, it's not surprising. It shouldn't come as too much of a shock. It is still fucked up, though, that, yeah, you have, like, a Border Patrol agents named, like, Jesus Ochoa and Raimundo Gutierrez shooting, someone named a white guy named Alex Preddy who's protesting deportations. So yeah, anyway, but yeah, this is blowing up in Trump's face because people are pissed at this. Trump is now having to pull back ICE agents from Minneapolis. And yeah, people are really fucking pissed off about this because, like I said in the previous episode I recorded with Peter, I think the fact that Alex Preddy is white and so is Renee Nicole Good, the fact that both these victims are white, I think makes a huge difference. These deaths are still tragic. It is still it is still incredibly sad. Like someone like Alex Preddy, who, I think it's fair to say is among the, one of represents the what people say Americans should be in terms of like, being a decent person, a good person by one's actions. Like he was trying to protect a woman who was being pepper sprayed. He was there to, protest against Trump's fascist immigration policies. He was an ICU nurse. Like he's, like seemed like a decent person, and he got killed for it. So it is incredibly fucked up on that level. But like I'm gonna mention later on in part 2, state violence against black people has been going on for a long fucking time, and as I will explain later, digging further, this shit has been going on against black people for decades, and it's kind of treated as business as usual. Like I said, I'm gonna dig further into that, but like I said, I do think the fact that Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy were white is a reason why, like, there's this massive outrage. And to switch topics, to lay out like how the fuck we got here. This is not directly connected with ICE, but there is connections, as I will mention. So, actually, let me start with the Obama administration's drone strike policy, because the way in which, the intelligence that the Obama administration used to find people to kill for assassination via drone strike was through cell phone metadata. So basically, cell phone metadata is not surveilling or spying on someone's cell phone conversations or the contents of, like, let's say, text messages. It's looking at a pattern of behavior, like basically someone making a cell phone call at a certain time from a certain location to someone else, and doing that kind of data mining for that, and using that data to basically do, like, essentially pattern recognition, to detect, like, a pattern of behavior. And that kind of analysis was used to determine whether or not someone was a quote unquote, like, terrorist, either like a member of Al Qaeda or the Taliban, or this broad term that the Obama administration loved to use, which was associated forces. So, like, forces associated with Al Qaeda or the Taliban or anyone affiliated with 9/11. And then later on, Obama would add, like, associates of associates. So basically, it was used to expand the scope of the war on terror beyond people directly responsible for 9/11. And look, like, there's no, like, under the basics of international humanitarian law, you can't declare war on a terrorist group. Like, that is wars happen between two countries that declare war. Declaring war on, like, a non-state actor, something as nebulous as a terrorist organization, that's more the realm of law enforcement rather than war. Like, you can't declare war on terror. Like, it's, so the premise from the outset was always bullshit. But that's what the 2001 authorization for use of military force, like, that kind of gave the president, the executive branch, a blank check, and then, like, Obama expanded the scope of the AUMF. So that was pretty much, like, I'm just, putting that in a nutshell, the Obama administration's approach to global counterterrorism and, like, the war on terror, was more of an emphasis on drone strikes and, like, direct action and by CIA paramilitary forces, Joint Special Operations Command, and also CIA-backed death squads in Afghanistan, as I'll explain later. But full disclosure, I used to, when I was an intern at The Nation magazine in the fall of 2012, I was an intern for Jeremy Scahill, so I just thought I'd mention that. But I found some clips of Jeremy Scahill, because I remember at the time he was wrapping up his book Dirty Wars. So when I was his intern, he was wrapping up that book and like putting the final touches on the film, and like, you know, so. But I got to chop it up with him, but I remember that time, like, yeah, he was just finishing that stuff up, where he talked about, the Obama's kill list and the drone policy, and in my room I have a copy of his book, and he signed it for me. So and he remembered, So I'm gonna play 2 clips where Jeremy Scahill talked about this. Around that time, from like 2012 to 2014, Obama's drone policy and the death by metadata. So I'm going to play that, and then I'm going to read something I wrote in Alternet in August 19th, 2014, where I talk about Palantir. And then from there, I'm going to talk about the CIA-backed death squads in Afghanistan, this National Guard shooter, this other guy who got in a shootout with police in Virginia. I'm going to talk about that, and then these articles on, then I'll talk about the Trump boat strikes in the Caribbean. So again, this is going to be part 1, then I'll stop that and then record part 2. So anyway, the first clip I'm going to play right now is, the YouTube title is Jeremy Scahill takes down MSNBC panel on Obama's foreign policy. The air date of that was September 9th, 2012. So he was so Jeremy Scahill was, there's a panel with, this was Chris Hayes' previous show, Up with Chris Hayes, and on the panel is Michelle Goldberg, and now, before she was in the Trump administration, then Representative Tulsi Gabbard, and also Peter Beinart. And Peter Beinart was pretty defensive of Obama's foreign policy at the time. So Peter Beinart's made a shift, because like he's now much more like explicitly anti-Zionist and pro-Palestinian. But during that time, Peter Beinart was like an Obama era liberal, like kind of a little defensive of Obama's foreign policy. But it's like a trip down memory lane, because now Tulsi Gabbard, she's the Trump administration's director of national intelligence, but at this time, she was a congresswoman from Hawaii. So I'm going to play that clip.
Jeremy Scahill, what was your impression of watching this kind of the posture from the Democratic Party at this convention on national security issues, which is what you cover?
Well, I mean, regarding the way that, Osama bin Laden's name was used by the Democrats at the convention, it really felt like we were watching a parade of jingoism that belonged in a sports bar. And I think that the fact is that there has been no serious analysis of the president's foreign policy. In all of the coverage I've seen of the Democratic National Convention, including MSNBC, there has been no serious, hard-hitting critique of the president's foreign policy from the issues that actually are real, or that distinguish him, from the Republicans. Because the fact is that the Democratic foreign policy is distinguishable from the Republicans only insofar as the president took some of the worst aspects of the Bush-era foreign policy and pushed them forward.
Well, wait a second. That's not entirely fair. I mean, there's some truth to that, but if you look at what's happened on Iran over the past few weeks, I think, where I think the administration has quite skillfully pushed back on pressure that was mounting on them to set a deadline by which they would take military action, I think that was a pretty significant
we have a president who, in a 2-week period, authorized the assassination of 3 U.S. citizens in Yemen, including a 16-year-old boy who was killed while he was having a barbecue with his teenage friends named Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. They have never been able to produce who the target of that strike was.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we do not know that he was the target.
The president authorized operations over a 2-week period that resulted in the deaths of 3 American citizens, including a 16-year-old boy. And if you're going to use Osama bin Laden's killing as a football to spike on the national stage, I want the president of the United States to explain to the American people why. If you're going to use it in such a jingoistic way, yes, if you're going to use it in such a cynical way.
Substantively, I agree with you about the drone policy, but it would be political malpractice to not kind of milk the bin Laden thing on the national stage when you're running against the Republicans.
I travel in countries where these drone strikes happen. I'm not talking about political malpractice.
Right, but we're talking about the convention. So there's two different things. There's the discussion about the president's foreign policy, but then there's also the discussion about kind of how they're using that foreign policy to win a very important election.
But many of the media discussions, including here on MSNBC about foreign policy during the convention, felt like we were watching an Obama for America meetup, not an actual serious critique of this president's most egregious aspects of his foreign policy, where you do see that of the Republicans. There's all of this going after Romney, and I think it's completely legitimate. But some of the core issues of this president's national security policy are not being debated. And I'm sorry, but watching John Kerry and Joseph Biden criticizing the war in Iraq. They voted for the war in Iraq. Joe Biden was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and shut down debate about Iraq when it was being debated in this country. I mean, there's revisionism, there's jingoism. To me, I'm not thinking about this from a cynical political perspective. I'm talking about life and death issues that cut to the heart of, are we going to follow the Constitution when it comes to due process for American citizens?
We should disaggregate some of the issues, right? Because I think a lot of things are getting bound up in that, right? There is the ending the war in Iraq, right? The status of forces agreement was negotiated by the Bush administration that we adhered to. There was even some evidence we were trying to get out of it. But at the end of the day, the end result was the president did end the war, right? I mean, we're going to keep quite a large force of essentially paid mercenaries behind. There's a huge embassy, but combat troops have been brought home. And I think that is in one column. There's extension. There's the surge in Afghanistan, right? The increased troops. We have 87,000 troops there, and the deadline for that. There's the decision to order the strike against Osama bin Laden, and then there is the massive drone policy and all of the engagements that we've engaged in terms of bombing and drones across other theaters that you've been covering. So I just want to put those out there as distinct things, and then there's Iran.
And then there's Iran, yeah.
Right. So let's sort of look at some of those individually rather than as a sort of full portfolio. And Tulsi, I'd like to get your thoughts on it when we come back.
Okay, now the next clip I'm going to play is where it's also it's when Chris Hayes' show switched from Up with Chris Hayes to All In with Chris Hayes. This is after Scahill published his book Dirty Wars. This came out, I believe, in 2014. This clip came out. And this is where, hold on, let me get the exact date. Yeah, 2014. There you go. It came out in February of 2014. So exactly 12 years ago. And they discuss the Intercept article, the NSA's secret role in the U.S. assassination program. So I'm going to play this clip where, again, Scahill on MSNBC explains like how, again, cell phone metadata was used in the U.S. assassination program, particularly under the Obama administration. And one of the things that was like fucked up about that method of intelligence was it was basically used to track cell phone SIM cards. So someone could easily take out like the SIM card of a cell phone and like take it out or give it to someone else. And so it was inaccurate, but that is how, like a lot of innocent people got roped into like this massive dragnet for the U.S. government's drone assassination program. So Scahill is going to explain that in this MSNBC clip, and then I'll also put the article in the show notes. So I'm going to play that clip right now. Then after that clip, I'm going to read my article. So here's the clip.
So there's this word, a kind of technical word, that has been at the center of the explosive public debate over NSA spying, precipitated by the Edward Snowden revelations. And right around when the first news leaked of bulk call record collection, Kieran Healy, a political scientist, very cleverly showed just how powerful this sort of abstract-sounding word really was. Using a few lists of different organizations and their membership at the time of the revolution, the American Revolution, Healy was able to produce a fairly simple map of social relations that showed that a fella by the name of Paul Revere was more or less the most influential rabble-rouser in all of Massachusetts, and likely to be up to something not quite kosher from the English crown's perspective. Now, for months, the president and his allies have argued against, again and again, that metadata, which is the word that we use to describe this kind of data, that metadata collection isn't much of a privacy threat because the NSA isn't listening in on your calls. They're just looking into who you talk to and how long your calls are, and what's the harm in that anyway?
When it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. What the intelligence community is doing is looking at phone numbers and durations of calls. They are not looking at people's names, and they're not looking at content. But by sifting through this so-called metadata, they may identify potential leads with respect to folks who might engage in terrorism.
Well, today's news brings us a blockbuster story from the newly launched website The Intercept that shows just how powerful metadata really is. The NSA is using metadata as, quote, the primary method to locate targets for lethal drone strikes. In other words, metadata is being used right now by the United States government to target people for killing. As in, don't worry, they're not listening to your phone calls, they're just running an algorithm to determine whether they're going to blow someone up. Quote, in one tactic, the NSA geolocates the SIM card or handset of a suspected terrorist mobile phone, enabling the CIA and U.S. military to conduct night raids and drone strikes to kill or capture the individual in possession of the device, which means that we, as a country, are right now targeting and killing individuals without knowing for sure who the person we are killing is, because we are literally targeting SIM cards and blowing up whoever's attached to them. Joining me now, Jeremy Scahill. He just started up a new digital magazine called The Intercept. He's also writer and producer of the film Dirty Wars, which has been nominated for an Academy Award based on his book by the same name. All right, Jeremy, so I think I understand that basically what you're saying in the reporting that you have in The Intercept today is we are actually targeting SIM cards. The thing that we are targeting, the thing that we're going after and sending a drone strike at, is a cell phone, essentially, and a chip inside a cell phone, as opposed to this individual who's 27 and we know trained here and there.
Right. We have a new source, Chris, who worked with the NSA and actually was a drone operator for the elite Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, of the U.S. military. And he said, you know, people get hung up on this idea that we have a kill list, but actually it's not a kill list. It's a list of either SIM cards or numbers that are associated with handsets. And so when the U.S. military or the CIA are targeting individuals, they don't necessarily know the identity. They just know that they're targeting that phone or that SIM card. And it's a system rife with errors. And, you know, just to emphasize the point you're making, which is a good one about metadata, you can have a scenario where there's these so-called signature strikes where the U.S. doesn't actually know the identity of a person they're intending to kill. They just know that their phone has been in a certain location,
right,
has called other phones on the watch list, or has been, you know, in a mosque or at a particular restaurant. So it's rife with errors and opens the door for, I think, a lot of the civilian deaths we've seen.
Yeah, that I think there's a whole variety of issues whenever we talk about the target and killing program in terms of moral ones and constitutional ones and legal ones and efficacy. But let's just narrow in on this narrow question, which I think everyone, there's a consensus that no one wants to see a completely random waiter at a restaurant blown up by a warhead that we sent because he happened to end up with a SIM card that was calling the wrong people. And that is the question here, right? If we don't know who the actual person is, it does seem like there is quite a lot of open space for error there.
Exactly. I mean, we're sort of in this era already of pre-crime where you have President Obama in office. His advisors know that if there's another major attack on the U.S. homeland, that he's political toast. And so what they've sort of done is go way overboard in trying to preempt any potential attack against the United States. And what they've done is, instead of sending actual U.S. operatives on the ground, which would constitute human or human intelligence, they're relying 90% or more on what's called SIGINT or IMINT, signals intelligence or imagery intelligence. And so what we have are strikes being authorized on the idea that we believe that this phone or this SIM card is associated with someone who is up to no good. And if you think about it in the context, this could come back at home very, very quickly, not necessarily in a militarized drone strike. The president says he's against that, but in using it to target individuals in the United States based on our cell phone. What if you lend your cell phone to someone else and you happen to be in Yemen? You send your kid to the grocery store to pick up something, and that's the moment the CIA decides to strike. I mean, this is a system, and we've heard from insiders, Chris, who have been a part of this and defend the program to the extent that it has taken out people, but they say, look, the potential for errors means that we should put a pause button on it, step back, and look at how this is essentially death by metadata.
There is another report in the AP today, 4 anonymous officials basically saying the U.S. is currently contemplating a targeted killing action against an American citizen. This story was strange to me for a number of reasons. 1, why are they talking now? 2, what is the purpose? And 3, it seemed to kind of bury the lead, which is that we've already done this. I'm not quite clear what would be new here. How did you react to that story?
Right. I mean, as you know, because you've talked about this probably more than almost anyone on corporate television, you know, President Obama has admitted that the U.S. has killed 4 U.S. citizens in a drone strike, the most prominent, Anwar al-Awlaki, this American citizen. To me, Chris, politically, this indicates that the White House has already made a decision that they're going to kill another American citizen, and they're sort of floating a balloon out to the American public. This raises very, very serious issues about the constitutionality of the drone strike program, whether or not the U.S. believes it can kill its own citizens without even charging them with a crime, where the president has sort of emperor-like powers, should be something that our courts should take up very, very quickly, and that should be the subject of much debate in Congress, and not just from the Rand Pauls and the Justin Amashas of the world. It should be something the Democrats should actually pay attention to.
Jeremy Scahill from the news site The Intercept, his film Dirty Wars. Good luck at the Academy Awards, Jeremy.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, coming up, the player who could be the first openly gay man in the NFL. His agent will be here ahead.
Okay, all right. Yeah, now that so transitioning from that clip, and now here's my article where I'll put that in the show notes. Yes, by yours truly. I'm gonna read from it because it's kind of interesting to see read from my own work. But the title is "How Google and the Big Tech Companies Are Helping Maintain America's Empire," and this is where I literally talk about Palantir, and Palantir, who is now like the CEO, Alex Karp, like it pretty much has the ear of the White House thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance. Like Palantir is all over the news, but I want to say, like, I'm going to toot my own horn. I was writing about, people like myself are writing about Palantir a while ago. But I thought I'd read from my article, because looking back, I remember when I wrote this article, there's like a lot of work I put into it, and I was really passionate about it. So anyway, yeah, so I'm going to read a couple passages from it where I also talk about basically I talk about like the history of essentially defense technology. So anyway, I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from it. One aspect of Silicon Valley that would damage this reputation of because Google had this phrase "don't be evil." So one aspect of Silicon Valley that would damage this reputation has not been scrutinized enough. Its involvement in American militarism. Silicon Valley's ties to the national security state extend beyond the NSA's PRISM program. Through numerous partnerships and contracts with the U.S. military, intelligence, and law enforcement agencies, Silicon Valley is part of the American military-industrial complex. Google sells its technologies to the U.S. military, FBI, CIA, NSA, DEA, NGA, and other intelligence and law enforcement agencies, has managers with backgrounds in military and intelligence work, and partners with defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. Amazon designed a cloud computing system that will be used by the CIA and every other intelligence agency. The CIA-funded tech company Palantir sells its data mining and analysis software to the U.S. military, CIA, LAPD, NYPD, and other security agencies. These technologies have several war zone and intelligence gathering applications. So there's roots like Silicon Valley has roots as a technology center that was also used to produce technology for the Defense Department. And I also include a quote from Michael Kearns, who was a whistleblower. So I'm gonna read that quote after I read this section in my article, where the subsection is Palantir and the U.S. military. Here we go. Many other tech companies are working with military and intelligence agencies. Amazon recently developed a $600 million cloud computing system for the CIA that will also service all 17 intelligence agencies. Both Amazon and the CIA have said little to nothing about the system's capabilities. Palantir, which is also based in Palo Alto, California, produces and sells its data mining and analysis software. Its customers include the U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Special Operations Command, CIA, NSA, FBI, Defense Intelligence Agency, Department of Homeland Security. Before I continue, ICE is under the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, National Counterterrorism Center, LAPD, and NYPD. In California, the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, one of 72 federally run fusion centers built across the nation since 9/11, uses Palantir software to connect and analyze license plate photos. While Google sells its wares to whomever in order to make a profit, Palantir as a company isn't solely dedicated to profit maximizing. Counterterrorism has been part of the company's mission since it began. The company was founded in 2004 by investor Alex Karp, who is the company's chief executive, and billionaire PayPal founder Peter Thiel. In 2003, Thiel came up with the idea to develop software to fight terrorism based on PayPal's fraud recognition software. The CIA's In-Q-Tel helped jumpstart the company by investing $2 million. The rest of the company's $30 million startup costs were funded by Thiel and his venture capital fund. Palantir software has a user-friendly search tool that can scan multiple data sources at once, something previous search tools couldn't do, according to a 2009 Wall Street Journal profile. The software fills gaps in intelligence by using a tagging technique similar to that used by the search functions on most websites. Palantir tags or categorizes every bit of data separately, whether it be a first name, a last name, or a phone number. Analysts can quickly categorize information as it comes in. The software's ability to scan and categorize multiple sources of incoming data helps analysts collect the dots among large and different pools of information: signals intelligence, human intelligence, geospatial intelligence, and much more. All this data is collected and analyzed in Palantir system. This makes it useful for war-related intelligence and law enforcement purposes. This is why so many military, police, and intelligence agencies want Palantir's software. So I'll pause right here. Basically, Palantir software can basically scan multiple data sources at once. So, and it tags certain pieces of data. So it has this ability to mine, scan, and analyze large pools of incoming data. U.S. troops in, I'm continuing from my article, U.S. troops in Afghanistan who use Palantir software, particularly the Marines and SOCOM, found it very helpful for their missions. Commanders liked Palantir's ability to direct them at insurgents who build and bury homemade bombs, the biggest killer of U.S. troops in Afghanistan, the Washington Times reported. A government agency, a government accountability office report said Palantir software gained a reputation for being intuitive and easy to use while also providing effective tools to link and visualize data. Special Operations Forces found Palantir to be a highly effective system for conducting intelligence information analysis and supporting operations. And provided flexibility to support mobile, disconnected users out on patrols or conducting missions. Many within the military establishment are pushing to have other branches, such as the Army, adopt Palantir software in order to improve intelligence sharing. Palantir's friends include people from the highest echelons of the national security state. Former CIA Director George Tenet and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice are advisors to Palantir, while former CIA Director General David Petraeus considers himself a friend of Palantir CEO Alex Karp, according to Forbes. Tenet told Forbes, "I wish I had Palantir when I was director. I wish we had the tool of its power because it not only slices and dices today, but it gives you an enormous knowledge management tool to make connections for analysts to go back 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. It gives you a shot at your data that I don't think any product that we had at the time did." I'm gonna put this, like I said, I put it in the show notes. Michael Kearns, he was a former SEER instructor, and he became very critical of the U.S. government's use of torture. So I'm kind of quoting from him. This is an email he sent to me for this story. It's also we've talked to each other. He's kind of learned a lot from him just in terms of like this subject matter. Captain Michael Kearns, a retired U.S. and Australian Air Force intelligence officer and former SEER instructor with experience working in Silicon Valley, explained how digital information makes it easier for intelligence agencies to collect data. So before I go on, there's different forms of intelligence. Like there's human intelligence that like intelligence agencies and military will use. That's basically someone gathering intelligence on the ground and sending it back. Signals intelligence is electronic intelligence. So any kind of data and information you get from an electronic source or electronic signal. So this is how he explained it. In an email, he told Alternate, back in the day when the world was analog, every signal was one signal. Some signals contained a broad band of information contained within. However, there was no data packets embedded within the electromagnetic spectrum. Therefore, collecting a signal or a phone conversation was largely the task of capturing, decoding, processing some specifically targeted singular source. Today, welcome to the digital era. Data packets flow as if like water, with pieces and parts of all things upstream contained within. Therefore, the task today for a digital society is largely one of collecting everything so as to fully unwrap and exploit the totality of the captured data in an almost exploratory manner. And therein lies the apparent, inherently unconstitutionalness of wholesale collection of digital data. It's almost like pre-crime. Yeah, because like back in the analog day where like it was a phone landline, the FBI or someone would tap a phone, and then from that phone conversation, they would decode it from that singular source, from like a phone landline, right? In the digital era, information flows like, it's like a giant, it's like comparing water flowing from a hose from water flowing from like a giant dam or down a waterfall. The digital era is like, imagine information flowing like water, and it's like a giant waterfall. The analog days of like tapping a phone line, that's like water coming through a hose in your backyard, right? You're an outside faucet. So yeah, using his analogy, like data flows as if like water. So like you can kind of like, there's all this information in the digital era just flowing instantaneously, right? And what these tech companies want to do is just like capture all that data that's flowing and be able to analyze it and do all this kinds of stuff with it. Now it's getting to the point where keep in mind, I wrote this article 12 years ago. This is before AI, but even at the time when I was reading about this stuff, like there were people at the time saying that this technology could get so sophisticated that, like, are you using this data analysis like a form of pre-crime to basically to be able to predict that this person will become a terrorist at some point? That was at the heart of like the Obama era metadata. Like the critique of it was that, is this metadata analysis being used to make an assumption that someone is a terrorist versus like confirming definitively that this person actually is a terrorist? Because the assumption from the Obama administration was that we can determine if someone is a terrorist based on like their pattern of behavior by monitoring their cell phone metadata. If anyone's seen the film Minority Report or read the short story by Philip K. Dick, that's what that's about. Is like, oh, we can determine if someone is a criminal based on just like patterns of behavior. Another, if you're a fan of anime, an anime show that follows from that premise is the anime show Psychopaths. That essentially we're using all this data mining to predict that someone could be a terrorist at some point. So to reiterate what Kieran's told me, he said, therein lies the apparent inherently unconstitutionalness of wholesale collection of digital data. It's almost like pre-crime. Yeah, you're just wholesale collection of digital data to do what with it? Like, oh, we can determine like if you're going to be a terrorist. And that also, yeah, it gets into like violating the Fourth Amendment, and using that data to not only violate privacy, but to basically, yeah, a form of pre-crime. So then I kind of go on, where I talk about, there was, this is something I want to talk about. Yeah, there was a disposition matrix. It was a database that would continuously add names, locations, and associates of suspected terrorists to basically kill lists. This is during the Obama administration. This is the kill list, the disposition matrix. Why do I bring this up? Now ICE, apparently ICE has a database of American citizens to monitor, to like, either detain or, so this infrastructure was being refined during the Obama administration. Now with Trump in office, it's like, oh, we're going to take it even fucking further. Like I said, ICE now has a database of American citizens who have been spying on ICE, who are protesting against ICE. There is precedent for this shit. And speaking of precedent for this shit, there's a really good ProPublica article about the night raids, the Zero units. That's what they were called. And then there's a Intercept article. I'm gonna read a couple passages from the Intercept article, and what I'll do with the ProPublica. I just want to encourage you guys to read the whole thing. Because there's a couple passages from the. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna try to find a passage of. Oh, okay. Actually, you know what? I'll read kind of like an incident of one of the night raids from the ProPublica article, and then I'll read from the I'll read from the ProPublica article, then the Intercept article. There's a lot of stuff I want to read through, and I thought I'd dedicate like a whole segment to this. And like I said, record this. This is really kind of like a part 1 and part 2. Yeah, really part 1 and part 2. But this part 1, I'm focusing on like these articles because there's a lot to unpack. Because I think the reason I want to do this is flesh this stuff out is I think there's a lot that's relevant to today. So again, covered those MSNBC clips with Scahill. Mentioned my article. So I'll talk these articles, and I'll mention the National Guard shooter, then the Venezuela boat strikes, and then wrap it up right there. Anyway, the ProPublica article is trying to find the title, but yes, Afghanistan night raids 0 units. So it's really long, and there's a lot of like really great pictures. The graphics of it I thought were really good. Yeah, so visiting the raids. Yeah, so the reporter Lindsay Billings, she visited the sites of the raids. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna read from it here, starting right here. Okay. When I conceived this investigation, I knew if I was going to track the dead, I'd need some help. I met Mohammed Rahman Shirzad, a 34-year-old forensic pathologist from Nangarhar. As a government employee, Shirzad had access to official records to verify the identities of those killed. But helping me was a risk. Nevertheless, he was keen to join. We have to share the truth, he told me. We began building a database of alleged civilian casualties and hit the road. In the late spring of 2019, the trail led to the basement office of Lutfur Rahman, 28, former university professor who'd found himself unexpectedly chronicling the stories of 0 unit survivors. He taught literature but had also acted as a counselor to young men with no one else to talk to. Nangarhar is the most restless province, Rahman said. They witness these raids every day. He handed me a beat-up notebook. Inside were 14 stories of deadly 0 unit raids that his students had described to him over 2 years. We just started talking when Rahman got a call from a professor at the University of Nangarhar who said one of his students had missed classes for several days and then returned distracted and distressed, saying there'd been an incident. A few days later, I found Batur, 22, in the university science lab, sitting sandwiched between plastic models of dissected human bodies. Slight, disheveled, and with wild eyes, he looked lost. I suggested that we move to the privacy of the roof. He didn't have to talk to me, I said. It's okay, he said. He then took a deep breath and cocked his chin as if bracing for a blow. They came a week earlier on April 26th. It was a normal Thursday, Batur said. He and his brothers prayed at the mosque and then returned to their home in Kelogo and Kogiani district. As Batur spoke, his skinny ankles swayed back and forth, not quite reaching the ground. Around 9 p.m., he said, the 02 soldiers descended from helicopters and he knew a raid had started. They hit 4 houses before reaching his home hours later and blew up the door. A soldier with a megaphone announced, your house is surrounded. Come out. Inside, soldiers were asking anyone, what is your name? What did you do? Batur and his father were led out of the house while his 2 brothers remained inside. The two soldiers were speaking in English, he said, but there was a man with them translating their words into Pashto. Batur told him he was a student at the university and gave them his university ID. The soldiers checked his name against a list, he said, then ordered him to sit under a tree. As long as the planes are circling above, they told him, do not move. Batur paused and stared at his hand, flexing his fingers. My back was to the house. I don't know how long I was sitting there, he said quietly, but that's when I heard the sound of firing. It was like pops, so it was silenced guns. Batur heard the helicopters take off. Immediately, my father ran to the house screaming, but I couldn't hear him. I ran after him. My father said, come on, they're finished. I found his 2 brothers dead. They'd been shot many times. That night, 11 people were killed, including Batur's brothers. Sehatullah, 28, a teacher at a secondary school in Kogiani district, left behind a wife and 3 young sons. And Khalid Hamat, 26, who went to university with Batur, had married just 4 months earlier. The following day, Batur heard the local radio station announce that teachers from a government school were killed in the raid by the 02 unit. There is no mention that insurgents had been successfully eliminated. While my brothers were alive, I was free to study, but now they are gone. No one is here to support me. My lessons are left half completed. He told me he can't concentrate and has nightmares about the night of the raid. But his family can't afford to move from the village. We still don't know the reason my brothers were slaughtered. Batur believes the zero-unit strategy had actually made enemies of families like his. He said his brothers had both supported the government and he did too, vowing never to join the Taliban. Now he said he's not so sure. As Batur spoke, something round and black dropped onto the roof by his feet. He briefly cowered before realizing it was a taped-up black cricket ball that had soared up from the ground floor. After a moment, he exhaled. It's as if he'd forgotten to breathe the whole time we were talking. As Batur told me his story, I heard echoes of the other witnesses I had spoken to about the psychological toll of the raids. As long as most of them could remember, the country had been racked by violence. The hum of drones, the whir of helicopters, and the deafening blasts of suicide bombings and missile strikes had scarred the land and seeped into daily life. Yeah, let's just want to pause there, just so people can soak that in. And I'm just looking at that clip. I'm not going to play, actually, the clip of the man ranting about the Taliban. There's like a lot of video clips. I actually want to experiment with my solo episodes by including more audio, because it helps to hear some of the stuff. The man ranting about the Taliban when he opens fire on police in Fairfax, I'll include like a short clip of that. Because I think it's worth like hearing what he said. But yeah. This Intercept article titled "The CIA's Afghan Death Squads." This was published December 18th, 2020. The ProPublica article that came out in, let me check the date. December 15th, 2022. So I'm going to read from the Intercept article because it kind of explains like a little bit of the history of these zero units. So, not from here. Yeah, here we go. I'm just, like I said, I'm reading from these articles just because, like I said, I think I want to get this out here in audio form, but like I said, there's a lot. I'm also approaching this as a teacher because, like, when I'm with my students, when it's like a lot of text to absorb, I want to read it and then like, okay, let's absorb it, reflect on it. So from the ProPublica article, it talks about the the toll that these night raids have on people, because basically like, these death squads basically came in under the cover of darkness and raid people's homes out of nowhere and wreck shit up and kill people. This is the norm. The Intercept, I want to read from the Intercept. So here we go. Beginning in December 2018 and continuing for at least a year, Afghan operatives believed to belong to an elite CIA-trained paramilitary unit known as 01, in partnership with U.S. Special Operations Forces and Air Power, unleashed a campaign of terror against civilians. This story is based on interviews with more than 50 Wardak residents, including 20 survivors and first-hand witnesses, and 29 victims' relatives and local residents who witnessed the aftermath of the killings within hours of when they occurred. Some of these events were corroborated by local officials, analysts, and community representatives. So, both these articles talk about like the toll on civilians. The 10 raids Yeah, I think this is probably talking about like yeah, so basically these are talking about like the CIA led Afghan death squad raids from like 2018 to 2019. I think this is what this article is talking about. Um these units have been operating like before that as well, but this is kind of looking at these some specific raids during this certain time frame. Okay. All right, it goes on. The 10 raids resulted in the deaths of at least 51 civilians, according to the Intercept's reporting. In most cases, men and boys as young as 8, few of whom appear to have had any formal relationship with the Taliban, were summarily executed. Some died alone, others alongside friends and family. Several raids were accompanied by airstrikes or, in at least one instance, the detonation of hand-laid explosives targeting structures known to be occupied by civilians. This Intercept has changed the names of those killed in the raids and of the survivors, witnesses, and victims' relatives we spoke to shield them from further harm. Okay. Residents from 4 districts in Wardak, Nurk, Chak, Sayedabad, I'm probably butchering the names, and Dirmadad, spoke of a, yeah, I'm probably butchering these names, so apologies in advance. Spoke of a string of massacres, executions, mutilation, forced disappearances, attacks on medical facilities, and airstrikes targeting structures known to house civilians. The victims, according to these residents, were rarely Taliban. Yet the Afghan unit and its American masters have never been publicly held accountable by either the Afghan or U.S. governments. The Americans step on the rules of war, human rights, and all the things they said they'd bring to Afghanistan, said Wardak Provincial Council head Akhtar Mohammed Tahiri. They are conducting themselves as terrorists. They show terror and violence and think they'll bring control this way. Known collectively as strike force units because of their targeted aggressive methods, the shadowy CIA-backed militias nominally fall under the purview of the National Directorate of Security, or NDS, Afghanistan's intelligence service. They are comprised of 01, which operates primarily in central Afghan provinces including Wardak and Logar, 02, which is based in Jalalabad and works in the eastern part of the country, 03, known as the Kandahar Strike Force, which operates in the south, and 04, which conducts raids in Kunar and adjacent provinces in the northeast. 2 units in the southeast, the Coast Protective Force and the Shaheen Forces, the latter of which emerged in the eastern Afghan province of Paktika in 2019, are believed to function under similar authority. So in the passage I read from the ProPublica article was talking about a raid by the believe, let me double check, is the 02 unit. Let me double check. 02. Yeah, so the passage I read in the ProPublica article, that was from the 02 unit. So the 02 was based in Jalalabad in the eastern part of Afghanistan. Okay, article goes on. The unit's American CIA advisors go by pseudonyms or call signs rather than their names. They not only train Afghan unit members, but also choose their targets, which the Americans call jackpots, issue detailed pre-mission briefings, and accompany Afghan paramilitaries on the ground during raids. The Afghans and Americans are ferried to remote villages at night by American helicopters. And American assault aircraft hover overhead while they conduct their raids, providing lethal firepower that is sometimes directed at health clinics, madrasa dormitories, or civilian homes. I don't know whether they're special forces or a task force or CIA, said an NDS counterterrorism officer from Wardak who accompanied 01 on missions until late 2019. But Americans are always with them. It goes, yeah, so like the CIA has its own history of training, arming, and funding indigenous militia groups and death squads. So like, in Greece, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, Central America. The article goes on. Since the September 11th attacks, the CIA has repurposed and supercharged those methods, dispensing training and weapons to supposed allies from Somalia to Syria with dubious results. But the level of CIA involvement in Afghanistan since the War on Terror began has few precedents. In 2013, more than $2.5 billion, nearly 5% of the entire U.S. intelligence budget, was allocated for covert action, the category under which the agency's Afghan Strike Force Unit program falls, according to documents leaked by National Security Agency whistleblower Edward Snowden. From establishing the strike force units to selecting their targets, overseeing their missions, and using special operations forces borrowed from the Pentagon to coordinate air support, the network of CIA-run militias in Afghanistan is perhaps the most dramatic manifestation, apart from America's well-documented drone program, of the secret war the U.S. intelligence agency is waging around the globe. And this is talking about like so there's a part where it talks about joint special operations command. Okay, here we go. I want to talk about this part. After years of hearing the sound of warplanes, residents like Abdullah can also distinguish between the sounds of attack helicopters and Chinooks, which are used for transport, jets, drones, known as Bangana or Mosquito, and the much feared AC-130, which locals call Jazz. The AC-130 is the same bulky passenger plane, typically retrofitted with a rapid-fire Gatling gun, a 40 millimeter Bofors anti-aircraft cannon, and a 145 millimeter howitzer that destroyed a functioning hospital run by Médecins Sans Frontières, killing 42 in Kunduz in 2015. And to give people an idea, I'll even put a clip right here, just to give you guys an idea of what AC-130 gunship sounds like. Basically, it's a big, massive fucking gunship. That's what an AC-130 is. So, here's like, let's see. Anyway, yeah, here's a clip of AC-130 gunship in action right here. This is audio of it, so you guys can get a sense of it.
Goes to one, round away, round away.
Obviously, it's louder because the clip I'm showing is from inside the gunship. So, just imagine the impact on those who are on the receiving end of it. Anyway, article continues. Every night the AC-130J is flying. Colonel Terrence Taylor, commander of Combined Joint Special Operations Air Component Afghanistan, told Stars and Stripes last year. The people they are supporting are requesting them every night. While supporting 01 missions, aircraft crews openly fire randomly into surrounding hills in so-called shows of force aimed at intimidating supposed enemies on the ground. The American advisors are aloof, according to current and former strike force members, only interacting with their Afghan counterparts on operational measures. This is explaining how, like, basically, like how often American quote-unquote advisors interact with these the death squads that they're training, that they're working with. Advisors to 02, so basically American advisors, dress in civilian clothes and operate from a building behind the Afghan units barracks in Camp Dyer, the U.S. Special Forces base inside Jalalabad airfield. On missions, the Americans generally wear green camouflage in the style of U.S. Army Special Forces, but some wear Afghan-issued uniforms. So some American advisors. Basically, these are commandos. These are American commandos. They're the advisors, quote unquote. Some of them wear Afghan issued uniforms. These are, again, American soldiers dressed in Afghan issued uniforms alongside the Afghan death squads that they're going on missions with. While CIA officers run the operations, most of the ground support during Strike Force unit missions, including the control of air power, is provided by fighters loaned out by Joint Special Operations Command. Variations on this arrangement have been used by the CIA since the Church Committee clamped down on agency excesses at home and abroad in 1975. Originally dubbed Omega in Afghanistan, the program temporarily stripped special forces of their regular military designation, a process known as sheep dipping, and places them under CIA command. This enables the CIA to circumvent the restrictions placed on fighters who ordinarily operate under regular wartime Title 10 authority, placing them instead under the agency's Title 50 authority for covert action. So basically, this enables U.S. troops, again, this is Joint Special Operations Command, so this is the military. So this enables the military to shift from their regular Title 10 authority to do covert action. So covert action is typically the CIA's domain. But to have, essentially, the reason why they like doing this is because there's a really good book by Mark Mazzetti called The Way of the Knife. And basically, there's often like a turf war between the CIA and JSOC because covert action has long been the CIA's purview, particularly per the National Security Act of 1947. That basically the covert action, covert operations, what the CIA does, and the U.S. military doesn't do that. But since the advent of Joint Special Operations Command and like the utility of having the U.S. military engage in, sort of classified activities, basically, the CIA, while they have like covert action as their turf, they don't have the guns like the U.S. military does. The U.S. military has the guns. So JSOC and CIA both do like basically secret war shit. But JSOC has the guns, like this article has mentioned. Like it says here, while CIA officers run the operations, most of the ground support during Strike Force unit missions, including the control of air power, is provided by fighters loaned out by Joint Special Operations Command. So the U.S. military, which the JSOC is under, they have the guns. That's the big, massive military budget for like all the toys, the weaponry. That's from the military, not the CIA. The CIA doesn't have like the massive like budget that the military has. So that's why there's this collaboration between the CIA and JSOC when it comes to these kinds of covert actions. Moving on. So why this is relevant? Because I heard this story of, like I said, I wanted to talk about it. Where the fuck? Yeah, there is this guy named Rahmanullah Lakanwal who shot and killed 2 National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. He's facing first-degree murder charges. He opened fire on, 2 West Virginia National Guard service members on November 26, 2025. So 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom so one person was killed, Sarah Beckstrom, and then Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. He was critically injured. Yeah, this guy, Rahmanullah Lakanwal, 23. He apparently he served in the zero units, the Afghan zero units, the CIA-backed Afghan death squads. He was a member of these quote unquote elite counterterrorism units. He was a member of the death squads, because now, you know, since the U.S. has withdrawn from Afghanistan, there are many Afghans who work with the U.S. who've come to the U.S. And that's not to say every single one of them work with, like, you know, the death squads or violent people. It's just like what I'm saying. This is like the blowback of U.S. foreign policy. So what his motive was, I'm not sure, but I did read that he may have been blackmailed by the Taliban before into doing this shooting of National Guard members in Washington, D.C. But yeah, it was pretty fishy. But yeah, he was a member of Zero Unit 03, the 03 unit of the Afghan zero units. And yeah, he apparently, according to this article in NPR, CIA Director John Ratcliffe said in a statement earlier Thursday that the sole shooter involved in the attack, who came to the U.S. from Afghanistan in 2021, was admitted into the U.S. due to his prior work with the U.S. government, including CIA. So, like, I don't know if this guy, he how much help he had. Basically, like, did the CIA just, like, not give a fuck about him? You know, like, once he came in, like, did they not help him with paperwork? And that's actually a good segue into this other crazy story I heard about by, so there is a shootout by this guy. This happened, I believe, it happened last year. Okay. Yeah, April 23rd, 2025. This was near the Greenbriar Town Center in Fairfax, Virginia. Fairfax County police officers, they pulled over a suspect, 36-year-old Jamal Wali, for a traffic violation. And he told the cop that he was armed. He said, I have a gun, I'm armed. This is all on videotape, by the way. I'm going to include, again, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to include, like audio. Because I actually think it's really important for people to listen, because, like, I think this guy, Jamal Wali, was having trouble basically navigating the bureaucracy of the U.S., and apparently he didn't have a license, and I think he was having trouble with getting a job and license, basically, like, navigating a lot of the annoying bureaucracy in the U.S. So he was getting frustrated. He let out this frustration when he got pulled over. Apparently this guy Jamal Wali came to the U.S. in 2014 after serving as a translator for U.S. forces in Afghanistan. But in the video, he claimed that not only did he have 4 children, but that he previously served in special forces. And if that's true, this guy could have also been a member of, like, the Afghan zero units. And this is something that, like, really stuck out, is at one point, like, this guy, Jamal Wali, shouted, "I should have served with the fucking Taliban. They're better than you." And he's just letting out his frustration at the U.S. government. And there might be some of these guys who probably serve with the zero units who probably, you know, like, the U.S. government didn't live up to its promise, and some of these people are probably fucking frustrated. And so this guy, yeah, he in the body cam footage, he showed him racking his gun pretty well and shooting from the hip, from seated in the car, and he was able to shoot the officer in his chest, but obviously the officer was wearing a bulletproof vest. But, like, I don't know, the dude looks like he's been in shootouts before in combat. the way he was
At
able to
approximately
wrap this line
2:35 p.m. on April
efficiently.
23rd, an officer from the Fairfax District Station was conducting traffic enforcement in the 4000 block of Majestic Lane near the Greenbriar neighborhood when he stopped the driver of a 1999 Toyota Corolla, 36-year-old Jamal Wali of Fairfax, for an expired safety inspection.
Jesus Christ.
X-ray 800 on a traffic stop area 810 12914 Fairfax Parkway 1436.
That was a heck of a stop, sir.
I have a gun and I'm armed. I'll let you know. So why did you pull me over?
Your inspection sticker expired
yeah, they
last...
know. Call Joe Biden or call George Bush.
What's your driver's
No,
license?
there's no. I don't have a driving license.
Why not?
Go back, sit in the fucking car, and leave.
No, sir.
No?
It doesn't work that way.
Okay, so go ahead, do whatever you want to do.
Can I get your name?
No.
No?
No. You're fucking killing me. You fucking people don't get a disability. Fucking, I have kids and I have a lot of fucking bullshit things. So why you fucking treat me this way?
Set 80.
Set 80.
Can I get a supervisor to my location, please?
You fucking dumbass
The,
fucking people. You fucking asshole.
Majestic.
I can't even go back to my
at
fucking country because of you fucking
Greenbriar
people.
Shopping
I
Center.
started in fucking army. Every time
Car
you
80
fucking, you
or
come
car
and
81
fucking
Bravo.
pull me over. Every time.
Do you have the registration to the vehicle?
Nothing.
You got nothing?
Nothing.
All right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give me your name?
Sir, why? Look. Hey, I died when I was serving you with you liars, with you people, with American status.
I served as well, sir.
Yeah. So you brought me to you fucking people brought me to this goddamn country, and I'm dying every fucking single day, and I have 4 children, and we wholly survive because you're a fucking racist people.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can't get a job, I can't get a disability, and they took my fucking license because I'm not able to pay the insurance. So why are you fucking trying to kill me?
I'm not trying to
No,
kill you,
you
sir.
are. I'm already died. I don't give a
Set
damn
80.
fuck.
Subject's armed, refusing to give ID. Don't reach for anything,
No,
dude. Don't unbuckle that.
I'm telling you, don't reach. I'm telling you, don't reach. I don't
Subject
give a
keeps
damn
reaching.
fuck. I don't give a damn fuck. If you fucking do anything, don't do anything.
Subject keeps reaching for his weapon.
No, I'm not. I'm not reaching.
Okay. Just want to use the field. Tell us over your restricted 1439.
Sir, I stopped you for a lawful traffic stop.
I don't give a damn fuck.
Okay.
You liars.
I'm not lying.
No, you're lying.
It's obviously right there.
You are no. Today's
So
the
what
day,
I'm-
buddy.
what I'm
Today's
asking
the day,
for
fucking
is you to
dumbass
identify
liars,
yourself.
White people, you lied for 25 years.
Car 80 Bravo. You direct on that.
You brought me to this country. I served with special forces. I lost my own fucking brother. I lost my everything.
I'm sorry.
I have nothing.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, you're sorry to hear that. No. Don't play that bullshit.
So you don't have a registration to the vehicle?
You know what? Listen, you're American, okay?
Yes.
Yes, you are American. I give you my fucking, what do you call that shit? Take it. They took my driving license.
So
Okay.
they took it away?
Yeah, for no fucking reason. I have a hard time with court. I'll show you the paperwork. You won't
Okay.
believe what they say. They don't. When I call them bullshit, the system is fucking broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're going through a really rough time.
Man, I should have served with fucking Taliban better than you. I was concerned and a fucking dumbass fuck when I was concerned about Taliban, but in America, since 2014, I'm concerned about more about you people. Because you lie, because you play games, that's how I'm going deeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are my partners here. They're coming up. I don't want you to get rattled, but it's because you were reaching for your weapon.
No, I'm not reaching, sir. Hey,
I watched you do it.
I don't give a damn fuck. It brings as many people as you can.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're not listening. What I'm telling you.
I am listening to you.
I have 4 children. Do not reach your gun.
Yeah, Rob, everybody slow down. Units are at 1080. Slow it down. 1441.
Hey,
so
listen, American. This is take it. I take this with you, okay?
So now you want to give me that?
Hey, don't you reach it? No.
Fuck! 800 Bravo, shots fired.
Set 80, I'm hit.
Bravo, shots fired. 800 Bravo, shots fired.
Listen, American. This is take it. I take this with you, okay? No.
Hey, don't you reach it? No. 41.
Hey, so listen, American. This is take it. I take this with you, okay?
So now you want to give me that?
Hey, don't you reach it? No. I take this with you, okay?
So now you want to
No. Hey, don't you reach it? No.
Bravo, everybody slow down. Units rapid 1080, slow it down, 1441.
Hey, listen, American. This is take it. I take this with you, okay? No. Hey, no. You reach it? No.
800 Bravo, shots fired.
800 Bravo, shots fired.
800 Bravo, signal 1.
Additional officers arrived and rendered first aid until fire and rescue personnel arrived on scene. Wally was taken to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced deceased. The injured officers were transported to an area hospital and treated for their gunshot wounds.
I thought that, that was worth, definitely worth talking about. And this, now I want to transition to when it comes to particularly the theme of this endless war and the ramifications of it. We'll talk about Venezuela. So particularly these boat strikes. I don't think because we talked about obviously Venezuela and the coup, the U.S. overthrowing of Maduro, but there are these U.S. military strikes under the Trump administration's military strikes against alleged drug boats in the Caribbean that have been going on since October of last year, and were kind of like a prelude to the, I feel like the boat strikes were a prelude to the U.S. overthrow of Maduro. So far, just reading from this article from Associated Press, the strikes in the Caribbean have killed at least up to 126 people have been killed in the U.S. attacks on these boats in the Caribbean, and families of 2 of the men killed in the Caribbean boat strikes, they are suing the U.S. government over unlawful attacks. So, and there's a CNN article. So, apparently a lot of these. This one guy, I'm reading from this kind of summarizing from this CNN article, Chad Joseph, 26, he had been in Venezuela for months fishing and doing farm work. And he wanted to look for a boat ride back to Trinidad and Tobago. So, like, these are most likely like people who are workers in Venezuela coming from, other parts of the Caribbean, like Trinidad. So, if anyone wants to look at a map, Google Maps and shit. So, yeah, Trinidad is very close to Venezuela. Like, it's like a very short boat ride, Trinidad and Tobago. Very short boat ride from Trinidad and Tobago to Venezuela. And then, yeah, there's all bunch of other Caribbean islands. Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia. Yeah, a lot of those Caribbean islands are fairly close to Venezuela, but Trinidad is incredibly close to Venezuela. So, yeah, the families of two of the men killed are suing the U.S. And the reason why that Trump isn't doing this is because the Trump administration alleges that these are essentially boats used by drug cartels to traffic drugs. At the beginning of earlier, well, it's already been the first year that this current Trump presidency, but soon after Trump took office, Trump issued an executive order designating narco-trafficking organizations, i.e. drug cartels, as terrorist organizations. And remember what I was saying about how Obama stretched the meaning, the 2001 AUMF, to add other groups to be quote-unquote targets for the U.S. war on terror? I would argue that Trump is continuing from that in his own way. This is his way of doing that. Yeah, Trump is framing drug cartels as terrorist organizations because, like, in Trump's eyes, this gives the Trump administration, like, legal and political authority to use lethal force against drug cartels. And that's because of the precedent set by the war on terror. That basically, because of the war on terror, like, okay, America's declared this war on terror, which, again, the premise of it is bullshit. But Trump is continuing that by saying, okay, well, Trump is like, well, my hot take on this shit is adding drug cartels to the list of terrorist organizations. Trump is able to do this. This is one of the most important points I want to get across. He's able to do this because of the institutionalization or normalization of the post 9/11 war on terror infrastructure and the legal framework. Let's see. Which article? There's an article I wanted to read about blah 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 about the Venezuela. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that was the one. Now I found it. Okay. Legal issues raised by. Yeah, this is from this website called Just Security. It looks at like NatSec issues from like a human rights perspective, like international humanitarian law, etc., etc. So it looks at basically, legal issues raised by a lethal U.S. military attack in the Caribbean. Actually, the attack started really right around September. Sorry, because I said like October. Really, it's like September, around the fall, like around like late summer, early fall is when these attacks started. So late summer, early fall of last year. So, let's see, where can I? Yeah, so I'm going to read a couple passages from this. The September military strike occurs in the context of a broader military deployment to the Caribbean, a deployment reportedly pushed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio to put pressure on Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. This article, again, came out September 3rd, 2025, so this is before the U.S. ousted Maduro. So, again, these strikes are like a prelude to it. The deployment includes 3 destroyers and an amphibious assault group with 4,500 sailors, including 2,500 Marines on board. U.S. forces in the region were further bolstered by a guided missile cruiser and at least 1 submarine, the nuclear-powered USS Newport News. So I'm not gonna go into like the legal, too much of legal mumbo jump. Like that, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but this has like a legal analysis. So it looks at, okay, the War Powers Resolution. Okay, when the U.S. president directs certain military actions in the absence of prior congressional authorization, those actions must be reported to Congress by the 1973 War Powers Resolution. So further, when U.S. forces are introduced into hostilities or into situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances, the president must not only report the action to Congress within 48 hours, but terminate such military actions within 60 days unless Congress votes to authorize it. The War Powers Resolution does not define what it means for U.S. armed forces to be introduced into hostilities. But like, the House Foreign Affairs Committee on the resolution explains, I mean, it's kind of clear, like getting into any kind of like combat. So, the executive branch has at times taken a position that supposedly defensive action by U.S. armed forces is exempt from the reporting and withdrawal requirements of the War Powers Resolution because U.S. armed forces are not introduced into hostilities, but instead hostilities were introduced to U.S. armed forces. The Biden administration adopted this legal theory to wage a years-long military campaign against the Houthis without congressional authorization, despite the restrictions on the War Powers Resolution. Okay, here we go. This is where the analysis. In my view, the U.S. attack on this supposed smuggling vessel constituted the introduction of U.S. armed forces into hostilities. Basically, U.S. is throwing the first punch, triggering both the reporting requirements of the War Powers Resolution as well as its 60-day clock for withdrawing forces. Okay, so yeah, so it also talks about how, like, these are the legal issues raised. So the law of war, yeah, here we go. The attack on a smuggling vessel in the Caribbean was so extraordinary because there was no reported attempt to stop the boat or detain its crew. Instead, the use of lethal force was used in the first resort. According to Secretary of State Rubio, President Trump was given the option of conducting a maritime interdiction, but instead elected to blow up the vessel to send a message. Such a use of lethal force raises a number of distinct legal issues. So yeah, there's a ban on assassination, but U.S. presidents have kind of gone around that. With respect to self-defense, the Trump administration has indicated that it is countering the flow of drugs to the United States. But drug trafficking by itself does not constitute an armed attack. There you go. Nor a threat of an imminent armed attack for the purposes of international law. Nor does drug trafficking represent the predicate for self-defense commonly used as required for the invocation of self-defense under criminal law in the United States. So yeah, so basically Trump is framing that by designating drug cartels as terrorist organizations, and that he's also, from there, he's trying to say that, okay, this is self-defense because we're stopping the flow of drugs, but trafficking drugs that's not an armed attack. It's not the same as like a military attacking a country. I mean, yeah. The law of war, here's kind of gets into like what I was saying about like the BS of you can't wage a war on terror. Similarly, you can't wage a war against a drug cartel. Although not explicit, the administration's framing of this attack on the alleged Tren de Aragua smuggling vessel suggests that it is targeting the group as if it were a terrorist organization with which the United States is engaged in an armed conflict. Such a law of war framework in turn raises a number of subsidiary questions. Even assuming that Tren de Aragua constitutes an organized armed group, which there is reason to doubt, with which the United States is involved in a non-international armed conflict, it is far from clear that the attack on a vessel and the killing of those abroad was lawful under the law of war. The United States has not sought to explain how either the boat or its passengers were lawful military objectives. There you go. So we still like this. Yeah, this article was written a little bit earlier before some of the other details. Another article, okay, asserting a license to kill, why the Caribbean strike is a dangerous departure from the war on terror. This article kind of argues that like it departs from the war on terror, but I still think it's worth reading. So basically with this article, yeah, so this is written by a former U.S. Government lawyer who says, like, yeah, this article published in September 15th of last year, 2025. What it says here, this is what it's quoting from the article. As a former U.S. government lawyer who advised on the United States conflicts with jihadis, and as an often vocal critic of how those conflicts have been waged, and indeed whether they should be waged at all, I am all too familiar with these abuses and the overreaches of those wars, which in some cases bled into outright criminality. But the Trump administration's lethal strike in the Caribbean is categorically distinct from these prior controversies. With this fatal attack on a vessel in the Caribbean and vows to bomb more boats, the Trump administration is not so much seeking to stretch the legal underpinnings of the war on terror to a new battlefield. Instead, the administration is effectively asserting the prerogative to kill outside the law entirely. Now, this is, I think, an interesting point, and I don't completely disagree with it. I think there's continuity in terms of just like the infrastructure, the infrastructure, the kind of deep state infrastructure to allow this shit to happen, the normalization of it. But I do think what this article is correct, and I do agree that definitely during the Obama years, like when I was covering it, the Obama administration put more effort into concocting legal justifications for the drone program and the targeted killing program and drone strikes. The Obama administration put a lot of effort into twisting law and finding legal justifications for the extrajudicial killings by a drone strike, but also other means like special operations strikes and etc. With Trump, not just with these boat strikes, but just in general, the Trump administration seems to give less of a fuck in terms of trying to dig in the weeds of like coming up with like legal justifications. It's just basically like, we're going to do what the fuck we want and we don't care, basically. And I think this article is pretty good at like digging into like the legal distinctions, because I do agree. Like, this is something I've been thinking about, that the Trump administration is giving itself more of a unrestrained license to kill, whereas the Obama administration kind of asserted the same license to kill, but again, definitely put more effort into coming up with a legal framework. Because again, like, yeah, with the Obama administration, like I said, Obama put a lot of effort in stretching the 2001 authorization for use of military force, particularly to include like not just associated forces, but associates of Al Qaeda, which that included groups that didn't exist until after 9/11, and so that expanded the scope of the global war on terror to justify assassination, which is how like Obama was able to do the drone strikes. With the Trump administration, again, with Trump, there's less of I'm going through my notes if you can hear me shuffling papers. Trump hasn't put as much effort. I'm not saying that there's no effort, but not as much effort into digging into the weeds of the law to justify what the Trump administration is doing. And what both these articles get at, I believe it's I think it's not that one. No, it's not the one I was just looking at. It was yeah, the first one I was reading. I thought this would be good. From the first one, the legal issues raised, the one from September 3rd. This is what I actually like this part. The right to life in human rights law. Such attacks may also violate the right to life under international human rights law. And while the U.S. government has not consistently acknowledged the extraterritorial application of the relevant obligation as a matter of treaty law, DOD's 2024 Operation Law Handbook, pages 98 to 99, adopts a view that murder is prohibited by a peremptory rule of customary international law applicable even extraterritorially. Basically, that, like, the U.S. is violating international human rights by doing this shit. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but let me see how much I'm doing this for about a closer hour and a half, or a little over an hour here. That is pretty much what I wanted to talk about with respect to the basically the U.S. empire. That okay, so that I don't have anything else much to say. But anyway, like, so these boat strikes. Okay, now I know. Yeah, these boat strikes, like I said, they were a prelude to the U.S. ousting of Maduro. Like I said, I wanted to bring it up because we talked about Venezuela in our last episode. We talked about it previously, but I didn't get to mention this. So this context will help kind of contextualize what's the U.S. ousting of Maduro. Basically, these boat strikes were the prelude to the U.S. ousting of Maduro. So far, 126 people have been killed. There's no evidence that these are like drug traffickers, and even if they were, like, you can extradite them. There's no reason to just blow up the boats. So, and then I talked about, my article where I talked about the Palantir, and now Palantir, is like has contracts with ICE, but it's long had ties to military intelligence and law enforcement. And I wanted to talk about the Afghan Zero units. So that concludes this part 2. I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna go eat lunch right now. I'm looking outside and the fog is gone, so I'm gonna go eat lunch, and I'll come back later with part 2 where I talk about kind of like I guess you'd call it a Black History segment. Well, it's always Black History on this podcast, so but part 2 I'll talk about K-pop stealing from black music. And another question I wanted to really dig into is whether or not white people have a culture, and then Black America and ICE, and then we'll follow up from what I was mentioned earlier about, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy being, sympathetic victims because they are white. Doesn't take away from the tragedy, but I want to highlight how, that kind of brutal violence from law enforcement in the state is Black America is very familiar with that. So this ends the part 1 of this riff, and then I'm gonna record part 2. So see you check you out, see you in a bit.